Hey everybody, my name is Mike Montgomery, and today I'd like to show you how I built this modern platform-style bed built completely out of 3/4-inch plywood. And that's not even the best part. It's got built-in end tables, or nightstands, or whatever you like to call them. So now, let's get started on modern builds.
This bed is built completely out of a couple sheets of 3/4-inch pine plywood, and I'll have a cut list in my written article linked in the description. The first pieces I'm cutting are the two sides which have the built-in end tables. I'm cutting the pieces to the width of those end tables, and then I'm using a pencil to lay out lines that are going to make up the final profile of the sides. The apron that goes around the mattress is 4 inches wide, so I drew that line on the inside of each side. First, I used a polyacrylic can, but then I moved up to a paint can to round over all of the corners. This is going to help everything blend as well as be a little bit stronger. I cut the long pieces with a circular saw. That's the easiest handheld tool to cut a straight line, but for the radiuses, I did switch to a jigsaw. Cutting on top of this 2-inch insulation was great. It's at Home Depot. Just make sure and get styrofoam insulation and not fiberglass. You don't want to get itchy. For the rest of the 4-inch wide pieces, which there are a lot of, I used the table saw to cut to width. Of course, you can use the circular saw just like we did before. This is just a little bit quicker. And to cut the pieces to length, I used a speed square and a circular saw. I'm going to be using my pocket hole jig quite a bit throughout this project. It's a really fast way to make strong, hidden joints that go together really easily. I drilled pocket holes into the head and the foot of the apron and was able to screw everything together. I chose not to use glue, that way I could disassemble this project completely for storage or for moving. But if you want to glue everything together, that is just going to create that much stronger of a joint. The apron has a lip along its 3 out-facing sides, and I used pocket holes to attach that to the apron pieces. But instead of drilling them on the ends of the boards, I actually ran them along the length of the board. This is going to help give me a really strong joint and to help make sure all of my edges line up. The plywood was a little bit warped, so I was able to do it 1 screw at a time, working my way down the length of the board and keeping everything lined up. A lot of people want to hate and say pocket hole jigs aren't legit, but I'm here to say that they are. Of course, I could have used dowels or some other kind of joinery, but at the end of the day, it's all going to be the same shape, so why not do what's easiest? I cut some 2-inch strips out of the leftover plywood and I attached those to the inside of the frame, making a ledge that the platform is going to sit on. The pieces run along the whole inside edge, and I also added 2 stretchers down the length of the bed. With the basic platform done, it was time to start incorporating the headboard, and it attaches to the rest of the frame using half-lap joints. Where each of my 3 vertical supports are, I'm using the jigsaw to cut away the wood so that I have interlocking joints for each of my vertical stretchers in the frame. The vertical supports themselves were cut out of the rest of the excess plywood, and I made sure that the mouth on both the platform and the support are the same size so that everything lines up really flush. This joint does not have to be perfect, that's why I'm cutting it on the jigsaw. It'll never show. If this was a visible joint, I would probably do this process on the table saw. And while I was doing all this, I took the opportunity to cut the angle of the headboard, which happens to be 10 degrees. The half laps are great, but because I used a jigsaw, they're not a perfectly snug fit. So to make sure everything is strong, I'm using my pocket hole jig again. I just put the vertical stretcher in place and then made sure and screwed everything really square. At this point, the headboard frame was really strong, but adding this sheet of plywood as the actual headboard made it that much stronger. I added screws through the back of the slats, and that tied all 3 of the stretchers together and made one really sturdy headboard.
So really quickly, I'd like to give a huge thanks to this video's sponsor, Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the ultimate meal delivery service. You get all of the farm fresh ingredients that you need sent right to your doorstep in exactly the right portions. No trips to the grocery store and no food waste. Blue Apron meals are sent in a refrigerated box so that your ingredients stay fresh even if you're not home when the package arrives. They offer 2 different meal plans, the 2-person plan as well as the family plan, and you can choose from up to 8 different meals every week. And the best part is there's no commitment, so you can try it out absolutely risk-free and you can cancel at any time. Prices start as low as $8.99 per serving, and there is no commitment. You can skip a meal or cancel your service at any time, so there's absolutely no risk. And the first 50 people that sign up using the link down in the description are going to get $40 off their first 2 weeks of Blue Apron. I picked the family plan, which was great being in this whole maker ranch with a bunch of other creators. I was able to cook an awesome meal for a group of people without really knowing what I'm doing. I enjoy cooking, but I am not great at it, so having those step-by-step instructions really allowed me to make something that would have been way outside of my comfort zone normally. I cooked broccoli, fried sweet potatoes, that's stuff that I would not do on a day-to-day basis. So thanks a lot to Blue Apron for sponsoring this video and expanding my palette. Now let's get back to the video.
And last but not least, it was time to make the legs, and I cut these out of more scrap plywood, if you can believe it. Each of the legs are made up of 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood laminated together, so the first step was to make those blocks. I just used wood glue and sandwiched them with a bunch of spring clamps. After I gave the glue plenty of time to dry, I laid out all the lines for the taper on the legs. These are also in the written article, so if you plan on building this, like I said, make sure and check that out. There's a ton of helpful tips. I just clamped the block to my workbench and used the jigsaw to cut that taper. Of course, I came back with a sander to clean everything up, but it actually worked out really well. Then, I just propped the bed up on some scrap 2x4s so that I could screw the legs flush with that rail on the inside of the frame. I also added 2 legs to the center of the bed. Now these don't have any tapers, no one's ever gonna see them, but they're gonna make the platform much stronger. And speaking of the platform, I cut that to size with the circular saw, and then I also cut a handhold with the jigsaw. That way it would be easy to lay in one piece of plywood, and then come back with the second and not smash my hand between that seam. With pretty much everything built, I was able to break out the sander and sand everything up to 220 grit. And then Jesse and I broke all of the corners down with a sanding sponge. Now I don't want to round these over visually, but I do just want to take off that sharp edge so it doesn't cut you if you bump into it. And to finish it, I used 2 coats of matte Minwax polycrylic. This is my go-to finish for light color wood and plywoods. The final step was to put on a mattress so that the bed could actually be slept on.
So I would love to hear what you guys thought about this project. It was an interesting challenge only using 3/4 inch plywood. It definitely made me think a little bit outside of the box, which was a lot of fun. And if you want to build this project for yourself, make sure and follow the link down in the description to the written article. I'm going to have a cut list, a Sketchup file. I'm also going to be releasing a video on my second channel, linked in the description, and it'll be a video of me teaching how to model this bed in Sketchup. Nothing will be too complicated and you'll learn all the buttons and order of operations for Sketchup. Also, if you are new to my channel and you're not already subscribed, you can do that right here. That way you stay updated every time I post another project video. I'm gonna have 2 more videos pop up on the screen. The first is gonna be another bed. That's what I'm building next week. And below that is gonna be a random video that YouTube suggests. I have no power over it. I hope you like it. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Modern Builds.